7 persons reported dead as articulated vehicle loaded with fuel upturns in Abuja.
Nigeria at the International Labour Organization Conference seeks support towards creating job opportunities.
Army worms and killer birds invasion. Federal and state governments explore possibilities of funding indigenous researchers on killer chemicals.
Good morning, Nigeria. Today we take a look at creating jobs as well as the aftermath of Nigeria's march against South Africa at the weekend.
Well, decades ago, in Nigeria, employers of labor went from one university to another to offer employment opportunities to graduates without them conversing for such jobs. I didn't get that time.
Well, but times have changed, at least in the last 3 decades, and this has been worsened by the country's current economic crisis triggered by a dip in global oil prices. As a result, we now have several, in fact, indeed, too many persons chasing too few jobs with little or no room for such individuals to create jobs on their own.
Now, a survey by Joberman, a leading recruitment agency in the West African region, provides another damning statistic. According to the survey taken by almost 90,000 people, 47% of the country's university graduates are unemployed in Africa's largest economy. By some estimates, Nigerian tertiary educational institutions produce up to 500,000 graduates every year. And there are also Nigerian graduates who study abroad who also come home to compete for such jobs. Do we need to talk about others who graduated from other institutions of learning?
All right, pertinent question you have raised. Now, just to back up a bit on the issue of employers in the past, coming around to universities to get some of the brightest students into employment. The notices used to be pasted, on the notice boards as they were, whether in the careers department or vice chancellor's office. They will come around, and say, look, listen, XYZ departments will be looking for applicants. So that usually will be in the final year, and thereafter the student goes on its NYC, and then the job is waiting. And so I'm sure that
I'm sure those are dreams youth of today would love to see.
Absolutely, but in the last few years, as we just indicated, the number of unemployed tertiary institution graduates has climbed astronomically, and employers have attributed the problem partly to the quality of education, and some, of course, have described the graduates as unemployable, precisely because, according to them, they lack the required skills. Now, Nigeria's university system, for instance, has at least some 150 institutions, and usually overpopulated, and again, can only cater for some 40% of persons who are seeking admission into those institutions every year.
Well, the situation is further compounded by the fact that most of these graduates even lack the capacity to create jobs for their sustenance, not to talk of those who could not attain the university. Well, they tell you that some are actually unemployable. In 2016 alone, recent data from the National Bureau of Statistics indicates that about 2.1 million people lost their jobs in Nigeria.
Now, why job creation has remained a major talking point with successive administrations over the recent decades, policies and programs do not appear to match expectations, as unemployment surged from 11% in year 2000 to over 23% by year 2011. That's over a 10-year period, and of course it's been worsened now by the economic recession.
Well, you could say that again. According to another survey, ways to solve the problem include creating secondary skills development and acquisition programs, as well as government investment in job creation schemes. In pursuit of this, President Muhammadu Buhari insists job creation is a priority for his government and has drawn up a special investment program with Empower, a job creation initiative for graduates as well as non-graduates to help young Nigerians acquire and develop, as it were, lifelong skills to become solution providers in their communities and players in the domestic as well as the global market?
Well, blessing. Now, even with Nigeria remaining the fastest growing economy, rather than remaining the largest economy on the African continent, that was by the 2014 basis. And before then, of course, we had an average GDP growth rate of between 5 and 6% until recently. Now, the growth at that time did not quite translate to job creation as was expected. So, what does it take to create jobs in Nigeria? And why has the nation's growth trajectory not led to jobs? Now, what environment could be conducive to job creations? Answers to these questions and others will be provided by our guests later on in our discussion segment on the program. It's on that note that I would like to welcome you to today's edition of Good Morning Nigeria. We're, of course, reaching you from Africa's largest television network, that's the Nigerian Television Authority. I'm Kingsley Osadolo.
And I'm Blessing Abu. Thank you for joining us on the program. And in the course of our conversation, we'll also take a look at the African Cup of Nations qualifying match between Nigeria's Super Eagles and Bafana Bafana, South Africa. We shall also bring you our companion segments. By now, you know, newspaper review, business, sports, foreign, and entertainment news. Time now for the morning news, and here's Lydia Bassi. Did you, by the way, watch the match?
I did. I was so disappointed. In fact, I'm trying to get over it.
Disappointment is an understatement, but we'll get to discuss that later.
Welcome to the news. Good morning, Nigeria. 7 people are reported to have lost their lives at AYA Bridge in Asokoro, Abuja, after a tanker loaded with petroleum fell over and burst into flames while attempting to negotiate a bend.
When you have this kind of vehicle and you park 11 people, even with the driver, it will be very difficult, for driver to even, maneuver, to even handle the steering. The 7 people that were inside, that were unable to escape, bullied their women, 4 women and 3 children.
4 women, 3 children inside.
Federal and state governments are considering the possibility of funding indigenous researchers on the production of chemical for pest control in the country. This followed concerns over armyworms and quail birds that are destroying maize and rice plantations in some parts of the country.
We are working with the federal government on best way to create companies that will produce insecticides, so that will also be controlled, produced locally, and the price will reduce. And the same thing was equipment mechanization, to see how best we can partner with the producers of machines for agricultural use, to see how best we can produce the machines locally.
Still on agriculture, at a time of serious economic travails when Nigerians are seeking ways to augment their livelihoods, some women are producing a commodity and giving it out freely. Salihu Abdullahi met these unique women in Aripa Aramanda community in Nasarawa State. He tells us the story of how they produce oil and how they share with family and friends.
We have enough palm kernel to produce more. We will be very happy if government can support us to boost this business.
As part of measures to enhance standard of living, create job opportunities, and guaranteeing green environment, Nigeria is seeking assistance from the international community to finance a recurring deficit national budget. The request by the Nigerian delegation at the International Labour Conference in Geneva, Switzerland, is based on opportunities open to member nations of the ILO.
Our budgetary provisions, but it's never enough. They should also come to the aid of Nigeria in tackling the insurgency. Niger Delta insurgency is there that has made for low revenue receipt, and we also have the insurgency in the northeast, the Boko Haram insurgency.
A lot of youths are not employed, and therefore there is a provision for technical assistance by the ILO, which can be extended to the tripod in countries to be able to address this issue.
Jigawa State Governor Muhammad Abubakar has urged Nigerians to ignore their differences and work together to revitalize the nation's economy. He was speaking in Kano during a Ramadan special breakfast organized by President Buhari's personal assistant on electronic media, Shaban Ibrahim Sharada.
I don't have to elaborate the issue of security, the issue of corruption, the issue of jobs, and the issue of sustainable agriculture.
Meanwhile, a special interfaith prayer has been held in Lokoja, the Kogi state capital, for the quick recovery and return of President Muhammadu Buhari. Solomon Ayedehin reports that the prayer was held at the Government House, Lokoja.
And raise him up that he might return unto his work according to your perfect will, in Jesus' name.
By special grace of God, the Mr. President will soon return to Nigeria, hale and hearty, because prayer is very powerful.
The federal government has restated its commitment to revive the Afam power plant. The Minister of Power, Works and Housing, Babatunde Fashola, gave the assurance after inspecting the facility at Afam, Rivers State. Kingsley Amajiri reports that the plant is expected to address the power needs of the zone.
We are only able to produce 100 megawatts. This is as a result of failure to maintain over the years, and I think all of the maintenance work stopped. We are here to assess the progress of the work we have been doing in the last 17-18 months to get this place back to its optimum capacity.
The National Council for Arts and Culture is putting itself before the mirror as it charts newer ways to bring Nigeria's art and culture to global dateline. One of the strategies the Director General Otumba Segun Ronshewe is adopting is hosting the 27 African Ministers of Foreign Affairs who are in Abuja for the Africa Nordic Summit.
We want to make people know that Nigeria is a safe country. You can come and invest, do business, very friendly people, hospitable people. Before now, our stories are being told by the wrong persons.
And that's the news for now. Blessing and Kingsley will be back after this break. Good morning.
If you hear a bomb explosion or gunshots of an active shooter, that might be a terror attack. At such times, always remember 3 action words: run, hide, report. Don't try to run towards the terror scene to save the situation, because there might be a second bomb blast or another attack. Run far away and take cover. Make sure you are safe first. Yes, it is in our nature to sympathize over the hurt, but remember, only trained personnel can help in such situations. When in a secured environment, promptly call relevant authorities and help will come. For anonymous reporting, call 09630-3250-5 or 0813-2222-106. If you see something, say something. Nigeria unite against terrorism.
This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
What happened? It was a mosquito. Oh! Daddy, here!
What's happening here?
Mama, mosquitoes.
I sprayed, but the mosquitoes aren't dying. No longer, because I bought Motain Power Guard, which kills 100% mosquitoes. Motain Power Guard kills 100% mosquitoes.
Pump it up while your feet are stomping and the jam is pumping. Look at the crowd is jumping. Pump up the jam and push up your hand. You know, say me fans they plenty like sun. Jump up and dance, make them understand. Say me energy could have never be contraband. Them say me hype and excited because no boy can't hype like me. All of my fans them invited.
You're watching Good Morning Nigeria. Economic expert commends government's 14 billion more free trade zones in the country and resuscitating the dormant ones as it holds great economic potentials for the nation. Plus, The pound sterling recovers after sharp fall resulting from the United Kingdom's election. All the details with Joy Uzo.
Hello and welcome. Last week Friday, the capital market closed the week upbeat as the bulls continued to take charge. The all-share index rose by 1.03% to 33,276.68 points, while the market capitalization closed at 11.503 trillion naira. 686 million equities swapped hands in 6,785 deals, valued at 6.07 billion naira. Access Bank and FCMB dominated stocks and were followed by a distant Diamond Bank. Seplat, Forte Oil and international breweries led the advancers by more than 10% apiece, while the flip side was topped by UPL, USC Properties and Custodian. And from the international scene, the pound fell to an 8-week low, and shares in house builders, banks and retailers lost ground after the shock election result, which increased uncertainty over both the forthcoming Brexit talks and the UK's economic prospects. But the currency recovered from its worst levels as Theresa May announced she was forming a new government with the help of the Democratic Unionist Party and vowed to press ahead with Brexit negotiations.
This will allow us to come together as a country and channel our energies towards a successful Brexit deal that works for everyone in this country, securing a new partnership with the EU which guarantees our long-term prosperity. That's what people voted for last June. That's what we will deliver.
And back to Nigeria. Findings by NTA Business News on activities in the nation's oil and gas free zones authority indicate government's investments in the zones are adding value to the nation. Although experts say more still needs to be done to bring them at par with the international community. Managing Director and CEO, Oil and Gas Free Zones Authority, Onne River State, Mr. Umana Okon Umana says the Onne Oil and Gas Free Zone has recorded remarkable success under the supervision of responsible authority since it began regulatory control in 2000. From inception, Mr. Umana says the zone has licensed over 200 companies to operate in the zone, including reputable international energy companies representing 45 nationalities. The attraction of these companies into the zone with an investment portfolio of about $20 billion has brought about an increase in investment inflow into Nigeria and created over 100,000 direct and indirect jobs, also paving the way for transfer of skills to Nigerians through manpower training.
Country can do more to benefit from the free zones, and that is why we are looking at how we can establish other zones, how we can make our zones globally competitive. Because investments are global, and before you can attract foreign direct investments, you should be able to show and convince the investors that indeed you are offering something that they cannot find in other free zones around the world. The zone already had that as a policy, the free zones, to ensure efficiency in service delivery. But we are working to improve, and to do all of this, our regulatory framework must be reviewed and strengthened. And I must commend the National Assembly because already, for example, like our Principal Act is being reviewed by the two houses of the National Assembly.
Mr. Omana says with positive response to expected policies, operators in the zones are optimistic of better investment dividends for the nation. That wraps up the business news segment. Good morning.
Thank you very much there, Joy Uzo, for the business package. Next for us, we'll take a look at the headlines and the front pages of some of today's newspapers.
For today again, let's welcome Bayo Atoyebi, our newspaper reviewer, who's already seated. Good morning to you, Bayo.
Morning, Blessing.
Good morning, Kingsley. Good morning, Nigeria.
Thank you for having joined us.
Okay. All right, Kingsley, let me kick off with daily trusts. I have just below the nameplates, Kaduna sacks 4,766 traditional rulers. You find that story trending on page 4. Leading for the Daily Trust, thousands chase limited slots to study nursing. That story starts right there but continues on page 5. And you have the graphic representation of the slots just across the spread on the Nigerian map there. Okay, Nigeria-China trade imbalance hits 6 trillion naira in 4 years. Those are some of the stories at the foot of the page for Daily Trust. Why I collect ransom in dollars. Evans. Oh, it's Evans? Find out more details on page 6. I'm under pressure to apologize to Senate. This is coming from Alim Dume. Find the story on page 41. Quickly now, similar stories you'll find on the front page of Blueprints. But leading for the Blueprints this morning, 10.5 million out of school children time bomb is from Senate President Abubakar Bukola Saraki. Reinstated judges, federal government lied on pending appeal. National Judicial Council is giving that information. Find the story on page 6. El Rufai sacks 313 districts, 4,453 village heads. The details you find on page 5. Insurgent now disguised as epileptic patients. This is coming from Adamawa government. Full details, you go to page 8. Hajj, body wants 200 naira to the dollar concession for pilgrims. This story you find on page 14. Quick notice, Pan Yoruba group wants Oodua Republic. Details you find on page 32. Policeman shoots wife, maid, and kills self in Nasarawa. You find a story trending on page 5. June 12, Southwest states declare today public holiday. All the details on page 7, Kingsley.
All right, let's take a look at the front page of the New Telegraph newspaper. New Telegraph has as its lead story some of the confessions made already by the alleged kingpin of kidnappers. Evans, that's the kicker, made billions from kidnapping and drug business. And number of writers there explains why he collected ransom in dollars and owes 300 million naira mansions in Lagos. Relocates family to Canada and bought houses in Ghana. And police recover assorted weapons from gang. The story is in greater detail on pages 8 and 9 of the New Telegraph, and you can see a number of photographs there on the front page of the paper. To the left, of course, is the Evans. That is Elias, by the way. Some other members of his gang, together with the weapons recovered from them, and then the 2 photographs of the houses that he allegedly built in Magodo Phase 2 area of Lagos. And then there's a sidebar there indicating some of the victims and the ransom that they paid. Of course, you have the first 1, 2, 3, 4 of them, $1 million each. And then the other, of course, last 3 of the amounts paid were undisclosed. Now, the second list story immediately below those photographs, presidency, that's the kicker. Nigeria's judiciary stinks. And it says, accuses NJC of failure to rid sector of corruption. And CJN, $9 million not found in my house. Details of that story can be found on page 4. There is a health story at the foot of the front page there. New therapy offers hope for leukemia cure. That's on page 32 in greater detail. Now back again to the top of the paper, immediately below the nameplate of New Telegraph. You have 4 headlines there in various windows. June 12 is mother of May 29th. That's attributed to Tinubu. An article to federal government immortalized Abiola and the botched national honor. Adebanjo, Ezefe, and Kokori speak. That's a special report you find in greater detail inside the paper. Wike to federal government. I got 17 billion naira, not 34 billion naira from Pari refund. That's on page 35. And Dangote Foundation donates 200 million naira food items to IDPs. And Naira stabilizes on parallel market as dollar demand drops. That's on page 30 in greater detail. Above the nameplate, Nigerians to pay more for electricity from July. With a rider, customers without prepaid meter to stop payment. That, of course, Bayo, you know those who are affected by non-payment if they don't have meters.
Well, I think there is a clarification about that, customers' clarification about not paying electricity bill. The Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission has actually given that directive, but there's been a clarification put forward, and it says that this applies to maximum demand consumers, those with threshold of 45 kVA, and it has not applied to residents. But the biggest story of the day is simply described as every day for the thief, one day for the owner. And that is the end of the popular notorious kidnapping Evans. His real name is Chukwudi Duneme Onwa Madike. He was paraded along with 6 of his gang members. And he says he has 2 gangs, and he coordinates them using telephone. None of the gangs know the other, and none of the gang members know his house. At the end of the day, he was caught. When he was asked how many operations he has had, he says he has lost count of how many people he has kidnapped and how much money he has collected. However, he says his specialty is that he demands ransom in dollars. And his highest ransom he ever got was $1 million at a go. He and members of his group are with the police. It may be recalled that they were declared wanted by Nigeria police in 2013. And he says he was a businessman involved in spare part trading. However, on one day, he lost about 20 million to customs when they seized his spare parts, and therefore he now decided to go into this dangerous business. There are properties of his that has been shown photograph. If it were in Anambra State, I can bet you those properties will go down. They will be demolished because they are proceeds from criminal activities. The other story that is dominating is Kaduna State government that has relieved 4,776 district head and village heads of their positions. This decision came from a recommendation of a committee that revised and reorganized district and village heads. According to the Commissioner for Local Government, Jafar Usani, he says the restructure was done to reduce the financial burden on the local government councils in the state. 313 districts were created in 2001, and it was increased by another 390 district heads, and it was felt that this cannot be borne. The staff strength involved in all this were about 2,700. Super Eagles parading an array of youthful stars. They twinkled in the sky at Uyo Stadium, but unfortunately, they couldn't record any goals. South Africa lived up to his pre-match bidding by saying it will surprise Nigeria. They actually surprised Nigeria. And in fact, the second goal came as the coach predicted. We will beat Nigeria by counter-attack.
All right, well, Bayo, that's a topic that we'll be discussing later on in the course of the program. It's our second item for conversation on blessings. I'm sure you watched the match, as Bayo was saying.
I'm not going to be unpatriotic at that point. So I said, okay, let me see what's going to be happening. But
well, if it's a friendly match, you can experiment with your team. Let's go over now to the Punch newspaper to check out the headlines on the front page of the Punch as well, in addition to the others that we have taken. Let's see, once we have the front uploaded there, you can see the lead story says with the kicker, high interest rates. CBN, banks, that man stands for the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria, and others to appear before Senate panel on Tuesday. High interest rates, CBN, banks, and others to appear before Senate panel on Tuesday. The story, of course, is in greater detail. Now, you also have stories there about June 12th. That's an earpiece. Well, for that's just gone off now. But you see the same photographs of the houses of the alleged houses of the kingpin of kidnappers, who's now in the can. I collect ransom in dollars, says Evans, and that's Lagos notorious kidnapper. And Kaduna sacks some 4,776 district and village heads, as well as others. And woman cries out over daughter who died while visiting Al-Haji. And Bello denies sponsoring constituents to recall Melaye. Details of that story can be found. So let's go back again to the top of the Punch newspaper. Just above the nameplate, you have some other headlines. You have there, you can see that $500,000 bribe. Prosecution kicks as CJ transfers Farouk Lawan's case. And Imo bank robbers Punch and others launch GoFundMe appeal for Hero Corp. Of course, that video went viral some days ago last week. And school feeding in 9 states got 3.7 billion naira. That's according to the presidency. Bayo.
Yes. My attention is drawn to this critical story. I think we should be of interest. Students of Electrical and Electronics Engineering Department of University of Ilorin have developed a device that detects electricity theft. They are working with their head of department. They have been Dr. Mudashir Akoride. Their device remotely monitors electricity and its consumer who are stealing electricity. It is capable of cutting supply to the thieving households and also alert the operators with details of the electricity stolen. The university is waiting for the patent of that. Today is June 12, and 24 years ago, Nigerians went to the poll in 1993 for the general election. The outcome of that poll has been described as one of the freest and the fairest in the Nigeria's history. However, on this day, the leader of the All Progressive Congress, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, says the Fourth Republic would have been a mirage if pro-democracy forces had not resisted military rule. He described June 12 as the mother of May 29, now celebrated as Annual Democracy Day.
All right, Bayo, thanks a lot. That's the most that we can take from the papers. Of course, as you can see, there are all kinds of special reports on June 12.
Yes.
The key figures, of course, who were players at the time, seeking the actualization of June 12, what it became the Fourth Republic. The media should also be mentioned, especially because the media suffered tremendously during that period. Bayo, thanks for being with us. See you again tomorrow.
Tomorrow will be another day. Thank you.
Okay, it's Good Morning Nigeria, live on the network service of the NTA. We'll take a short break now. When we return, of course, we'll be dealing with job creation in Nigeria as well as the outcome of the match played last Saturday between Nigeria and South Africa.
The Future Assured project of the wife of the president, Aisha Muhammad Buhari, is carrying out free medical screening and distribution of food items at various IDP camps, while ensuring the economic empowerment of women through training and skill acquisition. In recognition of her efforts, wives of governors have lent their voices and support.
In Kogi State, we feel the impact of Future Assured, especially in women and children.
The Future Assured program of Mrs. Aisha Muhammad Buhari, the wife of the president, has been very assuring and still reassuring in Sokoto State. It has impacted positively in the areas of humanity, especially women and children.
Supports the Future Assured initiative. Email programs@futureassured.org.ng. Future Assured, promoting and protecting the lives of Nigerian women and children.
A hectic lifestyle or overeating can cause a burning pain in your chest. That's heartburn. Take Gaviscon. One dose relieves in 3 minutes to soothe the pain of heartburn. It goes straight to the source to work for hours, providing long-lasting relief.
That's why I recommend Gaviscon.
I recommend Gaviscon. Gaviscon, fast relief you can actually feel.
If symptoms persist after 3 days, consult your doctor.
Here's your order.
I think this is not exactly what we ordered. I ordered a Coca-Cola Zero.
No problem. I can give you 0 calories, 0 sugar, and a great Coca-Cola taste. Here's the Coca-Cola Zero you ordered.
Do it again.
You still look like you need a Coca-Cola. Why don't you sneak inside your bag?
Wherever you feel, together be real, together
Enjoy.
Hey, great news! Oral-B has just been voted Kudos #1 quality toothpaste of 2017 by you. So even though times are hard, as a mother, you know that Oral-B is good for your family's oral health because they deserve the best. It's great value because it protects you against tooth holes and gum problems that can lead to tooth loss. It strengthens your family's teeth and gives them all-round protection. So remember, protect their future. Oral-B for healthier and stronger teeth in 1 week.
right, you're welcome back, but if you just joined us, we are reaching you live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority, and the program, of course, is Good Morning Nigeria. Now, unemployment and job creation are priority items on the agenda of governments worldwide, and Nigeria is no exception, considering the country's unemployment data. Let's join our correspondent, Timothy Yusuf, for a background report as a prompt for our discussion this morning.
Looking at data from National Bureau of Statistics, Nigeria has continued to witness by the day growing army of the unemployed. As a result, the need to evolve more policy initiatives that will create better environment for creating jobs is no doubt apt, according to experts. Many believe that job creation is one way of delivering the dividends of democracy and thereby stemming the tide of restiveness and insecurity in the nation. It is in these directions that successive governments have been trying to establish structures to ensure that the business environment is conducive for the private sector to thrive towards creating jobs. The place of MSMEs development and job creation are key to government's economic development efforts, the present administration inclusive. This is because it viewed the issue of unemployment and job creation as one problem too many confronting Nigerians. The administration believes that talking of unemployment means talking about Nigerians becoming self-reliant through acquisition of required skills to be moved away from provision of white-collar jobs. National Bureau of Statistics, NBS, in its unemployment report for the fourth quarter of 2016, disclosed that 3.67 million Nigerians became jobless in 1 year. The figures show that the number of unemployed Nigerians rose from 7.51 million in the beginning of October 2015 to 11.19 million at the end of September 2016. The report added that while the number of those employed rose from 55.21 million in the beginning of the fourth quarter to 69.47 million as of the end of September, the labor force population rose from 75.94 million to 80.66 million. While poor budgetary allocation was identified to be the major setback to agencies of government responsible for job creation drive over the years, the National Directorate of Employment, NDE, witnessed the launch of the first Made in Nigeria toothpick, as well as pencil, just as it also launched the Job for All portals, an online portal for registration of unemployed. Various ICT-oriented programs such as the Smart Farmers, an ICT-based platform capable of creating 490,000 jobs in the next 3 years, is a scheme designed by government to encourage young Nigerians to embrace farming. While the greatest concern of the Buhari government was to create jobs for the teeming unemployed youth of the nation, some of the programs of government is the N-Power program, which has thousands of spaces for young graduates across the country. There is also the GEEP program of microcredit for market women, artisans, and a host of other vocational persons who have skills. Stay with us as Good Morning Nigeria is set to discuss how to better create opportunities for job creation in Nigeria.
Yeah, thank you very much, Timothy Yusuf. Yes, we're set. Our guests are seated. I'd like at this point to welcome to the studio the Senior Special Assistant to the President on Job Creation and Youth Employment, Sir Falabi Imokwede. You're welcome to the program.
Thank you very much.
Also joining us in the studio here in Abuja is the Director General, National Directorate of Employment, Malam Mohammed Ladan. DG, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much.
Also, we'll be joined by another guest later, but right now, let's just start off with the guest here in the studio, Kingsley.
All right, Blessing, thank you very much. Just for us to pull this in context before we bring in the Senior Special Assistant to the President on Job Creation, the National Directorate of Employment, Malam Mohammed Ladan, of course, was created. It was set up to facilitate job creation in the economy, and this is, it's been so for some decades now. But the problem, keeps, as it were, expanding, almost intractable. exactly what is the perspective of the NDE, as you are also called, with regard to unemployment and job creation? Why aren't we creating jobs to match the number of persons or hands who are seeking jobs?
Thank you very much. Good morning, Nigerians. Briefly, we have been in existence for the past 30 years. I'm talking of NDE. We have offices in all 36 states, including Abuja. We have 6 zonal offices. We have, and the mandate given to us is to create job and provide employment. Somewhere along the line, I think something went wrong. We have not performed what we are expected to do. But by coming to NDE, I came with a vision. First of all, we need to know the magnitude of the problem so that you can find a lasting, possibly a lasting solution to it. As such, when I first came in, I got in touch with agencies like NCC, NIDA, Galaxy Backbone, NatComSat, and other agencies. And the reason being that we're trying as much as we can to have a robust biodata, whereby we have a website where all unemployed Nigerian youths will have themselves registered so that we can look at the magnitude of the problem. And luckily for us, the first day we went to NIMSA, we got an excellent result. He gave us the level of unemployment in every state and in every zone. And that's what we are working on. NDE has 4 main departments. We have the VSD department, that is vocational skill development. We have small-scale entrepreneurship. We have a department called REP, which is very dear to me. This is a Rural Employment Promotion Program. And we also have the special public works. The magnitude of unemployment in Nigeria, to be frank, is something that cannot be joked with because it's something that is enormous. And when we came in, we tried as much as we can to make sure that we touch each and every sector as far as...
What has been the result, DG? We know all these departments have been there, just like we indicated, and you indicated for 30 years now.
Yes.
And even before your appointment, even as DG, you had seen this magnitude. Because I'm sure, well, perhaps you are one of the lucky few, maybe your generation, jobs were waiting for you. Now, jobs are no longer there. Creating them is a problem, both for states, at the state level, local government level, even at the federal government level. So, for a body like NDE coming in, what exactly is wrong in that structure that is not helping to create these jobs?
You see, what we are trying to do now, unlike before, everything is going to be based on DD phenomenon, that is demand-driven. Unlike before, where we have about 80 different trades, we now streamline them to what we think is possible.
What is possible now?
What is possible is this. Unlike before, where we used to do things in a blanket kind of, now, as I said, everything is like in form of demand-driven. Based on the needs of certain area, that is where we come in and train people. Let me just give you an example. In Abuja alone, anytime I come out from my house, I realize there are a lot of skilled, semi-skilled, and unskilled labors on the road. So I told the Special Works Department from NDE to go around, take inventory of all these young men and women. We got across to various multinational companies working within and outside Abuja. We gave them the list. We're in partnership with them, and I'm telling you, a lot of them are now gainfully employed, despite the fact that they are on daily pays. And I know it's a matter of time. Some of them will be permanent, and they will be permanently engaged. So
okay.
That's part of
what part of the question that my colleague also asked a moment ago, because while they were explaining, you said in the past something went wrong, and therefore the NDE was unable to fulfill its mandate. What exactly went wrong? And take that along with the point you were trying to explain, and that you used to have some 80 or so trades, now is demand-driven. What exactly do you do? How does the NDE try to create jobs or facilitate job creation? What has worked and what hasn't worked?
Thank you very much. As I said, we look into it, and we pick certain sectors that we believe by the time we train our graduates or non-graduates. For example, we have a program called GAP, that is Graduate Attachment Program, whereby most of these graduates are attached to where they can have skills so that they can be useful to themselves and useful to the society at large. And there is a special unit we have just created in NDE called NDEI, just like NTA. That NDEI means ND International. With our robust data where all unemployed youths are registered, we are looking at the situation whereby government cannot do it alone. We cannot provide employment to teeming Nigerians. We are looking at the possibility, just like the Philippines phenomenon, whereby we can export labor. We are trying as much as we can to prevent our young men and women from risking their lives traveling across the Sahara Desert to the along the Mediterranean, where a lot of them lost their lives. We cannot stop them completely. We are trying to minimize it. This time, if they are traveling, we want them to travel in style and with pride by keying into our website, and we'll make it open to the rest of the world. We just came back from ILO and ILO meeting in Geneva. We had a fruitful discussions with some of these countries. So at the end of the day, by the time we have this website, whereby our teaming young men and women registered, we'll open it to the world so that at least they can.
Okay, well, Malam Mohammed, thank you very much. We'll come back to you so that we can begin to put numbers to the teaming adjective that you have used. I mean, we have teaming youths, X, Y, Z. What are the numbers of jobs that we've had, and in which sectors, and what are the prospects, together along, of course, with the challenges. We did indicate just before we kicked off this conversation that another guest will be joining us will be joining us now. We'd like to indicate that, of course, is still in traffic trying to get to our Victoria Island Lagos Network Center. But of course, we have him in his vehicle and is joining us via Skype. Of course, it's Mr. Tokwe Togun. Mr. Tokwe Togun is of the Nigerian Economic Summit Group, where is the facilitator of the human policy development. If we have him, of course, you can see him there on the right side of your screen. Mr. Togun, we hope we are not driving and you are being driven, so that you don't run into any traffic issues. Of course, the fact that you are smiling indicates that you can hear us. Now, the topic, of course, we're discussing has to do with unemployment as well as job creation. And just before, of course, you get into perhaps the weaker signal segment of your journey to our Victoria Island studios, let's of course, have you join the conversation straight away. We've been speaking, of course, with the Director General of the National Directorate of Employment. From your perspective, why has it been apparently difficult, for us to match the rate of graduation of persons seeking jobs together with available jobs in the market?
Reasons. Some of them are systemic and some of them are programmatic. We don't seem to understand the scale of the problem. We are developing programmatic interventions that are addressing pockets of issues, and we do not have some sort of systemic underpinning to those interventions. Secondly, our population growth, the rate at which our population is increasing, we've got a very youthful population, obviously. And if you couple that with the weakness in our education system, which means that we produce graduates who are unemployable 9 times out of 10. There's a mismatch between what our students graduate with in terms of skills, if they graduate with skills, and the skills that are actually required in the market. There's a significant mismatch. And that leads to people not being able to find employment. Thirdly, and also directly as a result of the fact that we have a huge youth population, is we've got an economy that also has infrastructural challenges. I think we can solve a lot of the unemployment issue if we have power, if we have adequate power, of things like that, exacerbate the unemployment issue. There's also rising from that high population that we've spoken about, is that even if we have an economy that is going at full blast, the rate at which our population is increasing means we will not be able to create enough jobs, paid employment, for everybody who comes into the marketplace, which means we have to strengthen elements around self-employment and entrepreneurship. And I think the government at some point recognized that. But the implementation of that policy to teach students entrepreneurship was weak and is still weak, and it's not been effective. So in my view, those are some of the reasons that account for why we have this huge surge in unemployment.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Togun. We'll get back to you in the course of the discussion. Now, we earlier introduced the Senior Special Assistant to the President on Job Creation and Youth Employment, Mr. Falabi Mokwede. Good to still have you seated. And you've listened to the other two guests who have spoken. There is a need to create jobs, no doubt. And matching what we have on the ground with what is expected is still that's a concern for all governments, executive government, and also the present administration. What is going to be different with what we're having from the administration?
Thank you very much. I think the first thing is understanding the operating world facilitation. I think there's this general misnomer that government can't or government creates jobs. When we talk about it that way, it almost looks like there's some inventory of jobs that you just open up and the government says, "Yeah, come and take, come and take, come and take." I think so. Let's get the diction right, that really the role of government is to enable and to facilitate job creation. And I like that because that was one of the operating words that we used earlier. So once we get that right, then the question then is, what are we doing differently as a government this time around? First things first, let's get certain things clear. There's no doubt we're in a shrinking economy. This is an economy that's been very import-driven. Because of the advent of oil and all that oil has done, positively for us, but one of the areas of negativity of the benefit of oil is that it's killed other productive sectors in this economy. But that's what has been the mantra of this administration in the last 2 years, really digging deep into this world of economic diversification and ensuring that it is not just a mantra that we've tried to do all the time. I mean, one of it, if there's anything that the Vice President, as the head of the Economic Council, always says, is about implementation. And I think we've seen a bit of that. I mean, so coming back to the role of government as facilitation, that's why you have the Presidential Enabling Business Council, PEBEC, and the whole Marshall Plan towards enabling business. Because jobs really are created when the factors of the economy, factors of production, once they interlink, jobs will be created. When there is a demand and there's a supply, jobs will be created. So once you begin to remove the bottlenecks, which is really what the PEBEC has been looking at, everything from entry and exit of goods and persons, everything from visa on arrival, everything from our ports, everything from business registration and all of that. Once you begin to remove those bottlenecks, and most importantly, the coordination of a lot of the agencies of government, which many times we also know have been inhibitors, even to the economy, to the economy being enlarged. So I think that's one really. The second thing is look at the role of MSMEs as clearly been given the highest, endorsement by this government with what the Vice President did earlier in the year with the launch of the MSME Clinic. And what do we do with the MSME Clinic? You basically go on road shows across the country, and where all the agencies of government, NTA and all the agencies, NAFDAC and everyone, they all come together. It's almost like you take the clinic to the MSMEs, and the Vice President always leads this session, just so that we understand that this is really where everything we do around transforming the economy, we need to understand that the role of SMEs are key. Every economy you've looked at that has transformed, whether it's Brazil, whether it's Malaysia, I mean, you think about it, it's really about, even China, it's about cottage industries. And these cottage industries are the MSMEs. So I think that's also something we've done very differently. Now, coming to, I kind of agree more with Tokpeto Gwan, as you rightly introduced. The NESG is one of our key partners, the Nigeria Economic Summit Group, even in the job creation unit. So there are very clear systemic issues, and many times, oftentimes than none, we've tried to use programmatic interventions to address systemic challenges.
What are those programmatic?
I mean, so things like you're just creating one, you're creating one training or the other, one program or the other, and things like that. Now, the point is, and the reason why I'm saying this is, when we came into government, when we assumed government as well, one of the first things we did was to really look into the economy and say, okay, let's look at these non-oil sectors, aside from banking and oil and gas and what. Let's look at non-oil sectors and see which sectors can really help to generate the kind of jobs that this economy requires. Because again, we are not in control of our population growth, unfortunately. So our population grows exponentially, and our jobs are created, very minimally.
Mr. Mahmoud, that's one question I would like you to address.
Yeah.
Why would the various measures that you have outlined together with what the ND DG has also indicated, are we, and Mr. Tokpe Togun, of course, has indicated that one of the key issues why jobs aren't available is population.
Yeah.
Are we, as a country, are we paying sufficient attention to population growth? Look back to when you were in school. How many were you in your class? I mean, I remember how many we were in our class. But today, you go there, and then you say, look, I mean, the population in the class is almost the population of the entire university that we used to have in the past. So are we doing enough? We recall that during the military regime of Babangida, there was a policy. I mean, people tended to poo-poo it at the time. So look, if one family, not more than 4 children. But today, maybe we are bragging about being 180 million people. Are we doing enough, to ensure? We're not saying, look, kill off people, but are we doing enough to control our population so that we can have better quality life?
Okay, well, I think you will have to direct that question to my colleagues in the National Population Council. But I think really population can be an asset, and really should be an asset. And for us in Nigeria, I think the greatest news with population is the fact that population is actually youth-driven. And that is the asset of any economy. Why do countries like Canada, US, why do they all do this, immigration lotteries? It's simply because they want to get a lot of youths into the economy. So here we are, we have that as an asset. And so whilst your question is very valid, and it's something that we must begin to consider as a country, but I think there are many other challenges, cultural issues, religious issues around that. So let's not get into that, but let's underscore that because our population is youth-driven, we can actually turn them into assets. And that's what we've started to do even with the Empower program. But before coming to the Empower program, which I know we alluded to earlier, I wanted to drive to a few things that some of the systemic challenges you asked. Clearly, education is one of it. And I know that our counterparts in the Ministry of Education also are aware of that. Education, I'd like to define education as the battle between knowledge versus skills. So that's knowledge. So we all go to school many times. We get the knowledge, but skills are driven by competencies, and what the market is paying for or will pay for is your competency. Now, our education system has not quite addressed that very clearly, because unemployability is a bigger issue I believe actually that even when at the rate of this economic growth that we have, we can absorb much more people in this economy if only our people were employable. So we've got an issue of unemployability.
Why do we keep talking about unemployability? We'll go back to Tokwe, presently. I mean, he said 9 out of 10 graduates are unemployable. What does that mean? We used to have in this same country, during the administration of Britain and so on and so forth, where they had 3 R's. That was all you needed to study. What did 3 R's stand for? Reading, writing, and arithmetic. And people had jobs. At the time we were in school, people pursued liberal arts, and they had jobs. What kind of skill were you going to get from liberal arts if you were going to act or otherwise? People still go to school to study mass communication, and they get jobs. So why do we keep stressing that our graduates are unemployable?
So I think, again, going back to your days and going back to the economy now. So, for example, in your days that you talk about...
No, I'm not so old. I mean,
No, but, so let me say something. So, for example, accounting used to be a very important, and it's still a very important profession. I mean, I'm a professional accountant myself, my first degree. But now, and that was because, again, in the 70s and the 80s, we had a lot of trading companies. The PZs and all that. And because you were a trading company, keeping your books, were very, very critical. Now, to sustain, when an economy, especially like ours, if you want to sustain your population, you want to be able to keep your momentum of job creation, you've got to move to a manufacturing economy. You've got to move to an industrial economy. You've got to move to a development economy. Now, when you move to that kind of economy, the kind of skills you require are different from the skills of a biz admin. Because when you look at our schools, where do you have the very high people, aside from the law and medicine? Where do you have a lot of graduates wanting to get into business admin, mass communications, accounting, and all of that? Meanwhile, the kind of jobs we need to sustain this economy are middle-level technicians, technical roles. And those are driven by skills, competencies, and not necessarily knowledge.
All right, Sir Imokwede, we'll come back to you.
So we can have a clarification of some of this area. Yeah, because part of the point he just raised now, Blessing, is, look, we are saying the kind of skills you need for a manufacturing economy. We have also seen in our educational system increased specialization. We have federal universities of technology. We also have more polytechnics. We have technical skills, vocational education. Why have these institutions, churning out graduates, not fill the skills gap that we're talking about?
Well, let's quickly get back to Mr. Tokwe Togun. Mr. Tokwe Togun, yes, you mind reacting to some of the areas raised by Mr. Imokwede here on the issue of skills acquisition versus just taking in knowledge based on what the school curriculum is churning out today?
Okay. First and foremost, the critical requirement in today's economy is for problem-solving skills, team working, communication, and it really doesn't matter what you went to school to study. That's knowledge. So we are talking mass communications, we're talking some other things, but when we boil things down, you must be able to solve problems. Our education system is not configured to train people to think. It's not configured to train people to analyze, to solve problems. And that's why we say a lot of people are unemployable. And when companies recruit, in the past, maybe you had a management training program that was for 3 months or 6 months. Now they are going as high as 2 years. That's because employers are forced to remediate the difficulties, the challenges produced when we graduate students. We are very knowledge focused. You've also mentioned universities of specialist universities, engineering, technical colleges. It appears that most of them, the curriculum is not skills driven, even in the technical space. So you could have graduates of computer science who don't know anything about programming. It's possible today. In technical education, we sort of have all the theories right. But with all the theories that we have right, why do builders go to talk to bring people to work on their houses? Why did Dangote have to bring how many thousand technicians from Philippines and India and all such not? It's because we have people who parade certificates but who don't know how to do things. Our economy requires people to be able to do things and less of just parading certificates. There's a big difference between those two areas.
All right, Mr. Togo, well, still with you. I hope we have the signals good enough. But just because of the last point you just raised, I would like to bring in the DG of the NDA back again into the conversation. Still, again, if we're talking about systemic problems and the various measures that have been adopted over the years to bridge the skills gap, the NDE, what is your relationship, for instance, with a pre-existing institution such as the Industrial Training Fund? Part of the mandate of the Industrial Training Fund ordinarily was to prepare students while they are still in school to have industrial experience so that they have an idea of what the industry will be like upon graduation. So how are you interfacing with the ITF and other government agencies to ensure that jobs are created or that graduates do not roam the streets for long after graduation?
Thank you very much. We have a lot of collaboration, not just with ITF, but with other government agencies, so that we can have smooth running of our programs and training programs. For example, we have a program called YESO, that is Youth Employment Social Support Operations. We also have programs like Basic National Open Apprenticeship Scheme, then the advanced one.
Who can come for this program, or what is the requirement to come for this program that you have created?
No, it's an open something for each and every Nigerian. As I told you, we have the basic, we have the advanced. We are talking of a situation whereby we have graduates for the advanced, and we have the basic for non-graduates. We also have a program called CGS, that is Graduate Coaching Scheme. In this program, we are targeting young Nigerians who have not make up as far as UME, WAEC, and the rest. We are engaging some graduates so that they can assist them to make up, as we are talking about in terms of issue of education, what have you. So we have various programs, good programs, that we are collaborating with agencies.
What is the greatest constraint for NDE in all of this collaboration, whether from the federal government or even across the states where you have your offices? What is the greatest constraint in creating?
You see, to be frank with you, we have a lot of problems, more especially infrastructural decays. We have about 74 skill acquisition centers scattered all over the federation. But I'm telling you,
non-functional.
Most of them. We have
what kind of skills were you supposed to be teaching in those places?
We have about 80 different trades. But as I told you, it is always good to do what we think is possible. As I said initially, it is demand-driven. We train them on various
but
skills.
if most of them are non-functional, what exactly are you training?
No, what we're saying, sometimes we engage consultants in the training, and which they don't have to necessarily use our various centers. We collaborate with the states, because I know there are states that have fantastic skill centers, well equipped. So we collaborate with them so that we can achieve what we want to achieve. And in addition to that, we have taken measures to make sure that most of our skill centers are functional. We have sent a team to go over there to each and every state, zone by zone, to access them so that we can see what we can do in terms of putting them in shape.
All right, DG, I cut in at a point. What areas, what specific area, Mr. Makwede as well as Mr. Togun, talked about the required skills for today's jobs that will address so many issues, that will actually develop the economy? In what areas are you looking at? What is capacity to actually look at these jobs that will bring up development today?
Well, we're looking at areas like agric sector, which is very, very important as far as our economy is concerned. And we have some programs to do with training our youth in various kinds of agricultural skills.
Such as?
We are thinking of, in fact, we have a vast land given to NDA in Sabwa local government in Katsina State, which is about 46 hectares. We want to use it as a pilot program for Agri-Park. We also have one which is about 40 hectares in Akanu, Akoko in Ondo State. So we are trying to use them as a pilot something. And we are thinking of engaging our youth because we are signatory to the Paris Accord. We are thinking of engaging our youth in handling economic trees and other cash crops.
Okay, DJ, well, thank you very much. While the thoughts is going on about doing that, let's get back to Mr. Imakwede. I'm sure alongside what NT is doing, other agencies as well are working with you in this area of job creation now. The Empower is one. Can we begin to see what has been done so far and what other energies we're channeling to other sectors beyond agriculture?
Okay, thank you very much. So speaking to Empower, I think the Empower, so we spoke about systemic issues and then we spoke about trying to correct employability, and that's really what the Empower is about. And I think one of the biggest things about the Empower is the scale at which we are also dishing out this, what I call the lifeline. So it's a lifeline that the president has extended to unemployed youth, be it graduates or non-graduates. As you know, in the graduate program, the promise was to create 500,000 and get them engaged, you know, in what we call a paid volunteer program for 24 months. And in that program, what you really do is really to gain employability. So everything around what Tokwa was speaking about in terms of interpersonal relationship, problem-solving skills, you know, listening skills, all of that. Because these are some of the, I mean, of course, if you meet a lot of the unemployed graduates, they will tell you, and the employer is asking me for experience. How am I supposed to get the experience if nobody, you know, takes the faith in me? And that's what this is. So for 200,000 of them that we deployed last November to the 36 states and FCT across 3 basic economic areas again. So we didn't just deploy them to go and be doing nothing, but you know, they're deployed to the education sector to help specifically at the basic education area as teaching assistants, you know, from primary school to junior secondary school. We deploy them to Agric, you know, so we've got the NAGRO, and they work as extension service advisors, assistants across the country. And then the last one is the health, the N-Health. So they work in primary healthcare centers. Of the 200,000 were deployed in November, 150,000 went to the education sector because, again, we underscore the importance of that, and especially at the basic level. 30,000 went to Agric and 20,000 went to health. And I've been on monitoring trips since April, just really going across the states and being able to see for ourselves with this transformation that is happening in the lives of these youths.
Well, Mr. Mahmoud, I would like you to speak more on the NAGRO, the extension workers. Yes. What have you found in terms, first, of the orientation or attitude of the persons whom we have engaged, and then seeing them also at work? What is the feedback you're getting?
Excellent. So firstly, you know, one of the things we also did with Empower is it's qualification agnostic. So it was actually based on choice. Each applicant had a path, so the 3 pathways are laid before you. You can pick which one you want to go into, regardless of what your qualification is. Because remember, again, you are going in as assistants. You know, it's to build your possible employability in that area of entrepreneurship. And I'll take a case of Musa, for example, who I met in Bauchi. He is actually, by degree, is a microbiologist. So ideally, he should be going into N-Health. But he chose deliberately to go into NAGRO, because his own goal, and which we even encourage in the write-up they see on the portal, is to become agripreneurs or to eventually become value chain operators within the agricultural value chain. And he picked that. And what do they do? Coming to your question, what do? They work with each of the agri-development programs. We've got, they're all over the 774 local government, coordinated in each state by an agri-development board, agri-development program board, and obviously centrally coordinated from Abuja here through the Federal Ministry of Agri. So we're in partnership with the Federal Ministry of Agri. They actually designed the curriculum the training manual and all that for them. In addition to that, they will all be getting devices. In fact, the first batch will begin to get their devices by end of this June. In that devices, I mean, a lot of apps will be uploaded because part of their primary role is actually to be able to go in and gather data about soil, gather data about farmers, gather data about even the farm size, so that we really begin to go on the journey of having a proper national farmer register in this country. So in going there,
no, but that is crucial. But that isn't the extension service.
No, so that's part of the role. Yes. In terms of what. So I said that's part of the role they would play, because when you go, it's the way they have been distributed now. They are distributed to each ADP. And for each ADP, there are clusters. So, I mean, I've gone around, I've seen the ones in the oil palm cluster in Osun, for example, that were in each local government working. In fact, we have video documentaries and working with the oil palm farmers there, teaching them new things. And these people, some of them are third generation farmers. So they learn more and also learn from them. So it's this mutual win-win. They document what their challenges are, and when they document it, they then send it as a feedback. And I saw some of this life experience myself. But what's even more interesting? Beyond the role that they play as advisors to these farmers, especially when you go to those who are actually producing, in terms of tilling the soil. Beyond that, a lot of them now actually seek to get demonstration farms. As a matter of fact, what I found in Taraba and in Jigawa, for example, was that they actually use these demonstration farms to really impact on the farmers. Because there's the natural resistance. You as a young guy come in, you want to tell a farmer who's been doing it from his father, like, oh, go away. But they'll say, okay, no problem, give us a demonstration farm, let us show you. And it happened in Kano when I was in one farm, and the women cooperative that actually were there, they were telling us that when they brought this green maize to them, that before now, they used to plant 3 seeds in a hole. But with this green maize that the Enagro volunteers in partnership with FADAMA and IFAD brought to them, they now use 1. Now, they also were telling me that they use less fertilizer now, so they're able to actually optimize their fertilizer usage. And all these are documented. I mean, documented in videos.
That's what you're saying now is pretty interesting. Blessing, of course, you will recall that on this program we've had several discussions on agric, and one of the key challenges that farmers and their association they have often pointed out has to do with poor extension services. Now, what you are discussing, it has to do with the federal government intervention.
Yes.
Is there any collaboration with the State's Ministry of Agric to ensure that perhaps it gets domiciled in there, and then the states can now also pick up the necessary, shall we say, vibrations, and then let the program running on their own?
Oh yes, excellent question. And it comes to what did we do differently, or what are we doing differently? Now this program, the Empower program, at the very point of conceptualization, we knew that the states were critical partners for its success. And even before we rolled out, we had co-opted the governors. We made several presentations through their governors forum and also the Nigerian Economic Council, which you also know the Vice President chairs. And each one of them gave us focal persons who are actually our liaisons for every state and FCT. Now, in addition to that, one of the things we mandated the focal persons to say is that each state has a state implementation team, which comprises of the institutions. So in that team, we've got the SUBEBs, which is the State Universal Education Board, which drives the Empower Teach. So we don't even allow, because what we do centrally is the recruitment is central, the selection is central. The deployment is done by the states.
Okay.
So we send the list. Once we say, okay, these are the 4,000 people from Abia, we send it to the state government. Now the states now send, so we don't even now allow the focal person to sit in his office and say, okay, you, based on this local government, go to this school. I said, no, you must bring in the SUBEB.
Okay, but we'll come back. We'll just note this. We'll come back to discuss the sustainability of the Empower program. To return to Tokwe Togun, who is still joining us via Skype on his way to Lagos, where the program is. We do hope you can meet the Lagos traffic. It's a Monday morning. One of the issues you raised earlier had to do with the deficiencies in entrepreneurial studies. Again, the school curriculum, particularly in tertiary institutions, was revised to introduce. Okay, we understand that. Okay, yeah, well, Tokwa, if you can hear us, we thought we lost you a moment ago. Entrepreneurial studies, what are the deficiencies in the current structuring of such programs in universities, and therefore what should be gotten right? So sometimes you hear people talk about, soft skills, which has to do with, soft skills which have to do with communication and stuff like that, and interpersonal relations. What is it that we need to get right with our entrepreneurial studies in tertiary institutions?
It's a number of things, actually. First, our approach to entrepreneurship studies is also very theoretical, and it doesn't really take account of our development needs. And I'll give you an example. So when we teach the students the theories of entrepreneurship in the curriculum that we use, we then say we want to teach them practical, and the practical that are the practical sessions in the universities to do with making. The reason why we had the 6334 education system was to enable us look at vocational studies as an option for students after the basic school. I actually just arrived at your studios now, but I'll stay on in the car and conclude this bit. So all those elements of soap making, dish making, and what have you should effectively have been handled before students enter universities. It's preparing people for the sort of challenges, the sort of things that Afolabi mentioned now in terms of value chains and clusters. Those should be the practical dimension that we equip students with at the tertiary level. We should have situations where we can expose them to various opportunities in agriculture, in different areas, and equip them with practical skills. Make the curriculum a lot more practical. I'm glad that the DG of NDE mentioned that he just returned from ILO in Geneva. The ILO has a curriculum for entrepreneurship in education and entrepreneurship generally that has been adopted and used in more than 138 countries with different demographics, with a built-in quality assurance mechanism. Namibia uses the ILO curriculum for entrepreneurship. Why do we bother to fragment and create things when we have proven models that are adaptable, that can be used in our environment? The second thing for us, like we also said, when we look at technical education, vocational education, it's important to bring the private sector, to bring industry into curriculum development. These are the people who engage with the skills that the institutions produce, but there is a disconnect. The private sector, industry should be part of designing the curriculum for almost every single area. And when we're teaching people, giving them vocational and technical skills, if we could also incorporate or embed entrepreneurship in that element. Now, why do we talk about a systemic approach? It is because we're looking at creating jobs. The 200,000 that have been taken on N-Power is good. Government also has an initiative called the GEEP, where we are providing capital, finance, soft loans, all sorts. Central Bank has a graduate entrepreneurship scheme. The biggest worry with these initiatives is we're giving people money. What about the sustainability? What about the support structure to ensure that in those ventures they are going to do, they can receive ongoing training, they can receive ongoing support, because those ones would help to maximize their chances of success. Barriers to entrepreneurship is not simply lack of finance, but we seem to focus extensively on addressing the lack of finance issues. We can give people money today, and 1 year down the line, they've lost that capital. Then they are worse than they even started off, because they may also have lost confidence. The nature of entrepreneurship, we need to give people the kind of mindset that can cope with setbacks. All these things are trainable. It's not simply preparing a business plan. Entrepreneurship education all over the world has gone beyond that. We need to, again, it boils down to problem solving, critical thinking. The same things we're talking about in employability, they are virtually the same issues in entrepreneurship. So when we provide access to capital, we must also provide access to support, help people to grow, access market opportunities and things like that. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Tokwe Togun, we hope that you now get into our studios while, of course, we focus on reactions coming in from our viewers so that we can still get 1 or 2 contributions from you before the curtain falls on the first discussion segment of the program. Now, let's take the twist that we have already, Blessing.
All right, let's take this one from Dile Jack Solomon. It says, in Nigeria, about 63% of the population is under 25. Unemployment is at 23.9%, with youth unemployment at about 37%. Only God can solve this.
And another one from Sonny Michael Omakoji. Now, government representatives should not be singing about Empower program until the job is made permanent.
Festus Akimboyewa, what Nigeria needs is comprehensive strategies on job creation instead of the piecemeal strategies currently operating in Nigeria.
And then we also have this from Oluide Adedayo. It says, this government has not created jobs, even with Empower, which is in few states. There is high rate of unemployment in the country.
Adediro Adedotun has this tweet. The website to register unemployed graduates is no longer going. Why?
Festus Akimboyewa, government at all levels should give importance to self-employment and entrepreneurship with focus on agro-industry and small firms.
From Professor Oko Ofoboche, says employment should be technocratic in ministries. As graduates leave universities, ministries related to their studies should employ them.
And James Oluwatosin tweets, has anything happened to Ajaokuta Steel Company up to this moment?
Sabi Boy says they usually send people, that's NDE, usually send people to company for training where one has to pay over 50,000 naira without sure job.
And Sunday Michael Omakojo, this is the last one from him. The number of Nigerians participating in the Empower program is not even up to 0.5% of total unemployed Nigerians. So what about it? All right, those are some of the tweets that we have in the meantime. Back again to Mr. Mokwede. So, part of what emerges from some of these tweets, and actually that's one of the issues that we'll also seek to clarify. When is a job said to have been created? I mean, some people have the perspective that, oh, if it's a 9 to 5 or 8 to 4, then you know you have a job, you pension after 35 years or 60 years, in 35 years, in 70, 60 years. Is that what we have in the new economy?
No, and I think Yemi Kale, the DG of MBS, did a very good job on this, and I would recommend everyone to look at it. His interview, I think, some 2 weeks ago, just really talking about what is employment and what is a job. So, you know, that's one challenge we have, also our mindset. You see someone, for example, who is maybe not, he's not been able to get into a formal job 9 to 5, but then he started maybe an Uber, and he's even from one Uber, got in a second Uber, got in a third Uber, and he still thinks he's unemployed. Yeah,
and if the customers were to advertise for work, he would be on the field.
Yes,
that's right.
So that's the problem. So I think, and part of it is also societal. It's a perception. So we need to do a lot of engagement. I mean, you know, so I find in technical vocation, you find a lot of people who are engaged in that sector, paying school fees, even giving allowance to their graduate siblings who are home, still looking for a job. I mean, so
what is employment? What is a job?
So once you are productively, and that's why I say Yemi answered it well, once you are productively engaged, you are employed.
That's right.
Whether it's semi-employed, whether it's sole employed, I mean, whether it's self-employed, whether it's whether it's 9 to 5, whether it's entrepreneurship. Once you are productively engaged and you bring an income,
and you
are employed.
skills,
Yes. The other thing is that's where I think a lot of people think. So really, maybe a bigger issue is underemployment. Is underemployment and not necessarily unemployment, because that's so when the tweeter who said 23%, no, unemployment as a nation it just went up to 14.2. So that's not true. So we tend to have this because of course there's this argument about living wage.
That's right.
So that's why we tend to have this issue where we feel that the unemployment issue is really bigger than it is. But when you compare with even globally, our unemployment rates are not really very alarming. The reason why Empower, and I seek to clarify, there's a reason why Empower is speaking specifically to the youth demography between 18 to 35 is because when you disaggregate our unemployment numbers, that's where you have the keg of gunpowder. It's close to 47-48% in terms of that youth demography age from 18 to 35 or 18 to 40 or 24 to 40, whichever way MPS seeks to classify it. And that's why Empower is targeted at that. Now, you cannot say that Empower is successful when you're permanent. We never promised permanence with Empower. Like I said earlier, it's a lifeline extended to bring about employability skills that hitherto you that were not employed before, you can now be gainfully employed. Whether your employability skills is to be able to get into a paid job, or your employability skills is to be able to become productive entrepreneur, or just fit somewhere within the value chain as a producer somewhat. And I must say that this is one program where we clearly then celebrate resignations, because it's a paid volunteer for 24 months, full-time volunteer, I must qualify, full-time volunteer for 24 months, but you are welcome to exit the program before then, and we've been getting a lot of people exiting. Those who now have found jobs in CBN, found jobs, somewhere else. Some company has now called them, because I do know, and one of you, and let's be patient and watch very soon, because what we're doing with Empower and the largest so far, and remember that with the portal reopens again tomorrow to take new sets of applications to be able to fill in the balance 300,000. It would happen in this economy that very soon employers would say, okay, beyond the NYSC, are you one of those Empower people as well? Because you would see clearly that these ones have gone through a process where employability, they've been able to experience what they never experienced before. I met a lady in Jigawa. She's been unemployed for 8 years. She finished her first degree, she went to do masters, and she said to me, this is the first time ever that I begin to feel like a citizen of Nigeria. Just because she's not able to earn a living, she's able to even give of the knowledge that she gets.
Right. Thank you very much.
What's she doing?
Oh, she's in the teach. She's in the teach. So I think in terms of sustainability, it's key that we mention that. So like we said earlier, the states are key actors to work with us. So, and we're even having cases already where some state governments are providing offers, for some of them to come into the civil service. So the issue of permanence will take care of itself, as we go. Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Makwede. Yes, we understand Mr. Tobu is right now seated in the studio. Yes, on the home stretch, taking a look at those critical sectors that we need to quickly have as our low-hanging fruit to actually warehouse some of these areas of strength, redirect skills. What are those areas you think we should begin to channel more energy to actually address and make like the lady in what did you say now? The lady in Jigawa State. There are hundreds of them like that across the country. Which areas do we begin to actually push more strength?
Thank you. Agriculture is critical in this economy, and I think a lot of mileage has been gained in agriculture. So we should begin to expand that focus in terms of getting people to go into agriculture. We also need to ramp up our technical and vocational areas, fabrication, construction, we lose a lot of jobs to other countries when the contractors bring people to come and work in Nigeria, mainly in construction and maybe steel fabrication. If you look at local content for the oil industry, before local content policy, most of the fabrication works were simply contracted and executed abroad. But if we begin to develop and build the kind of capabilities that will handle those jobs effectively, we can create a lot more work for Nigerians. There are also emerging sectors that I think we should take a look at and put some policy framework to support. One of them has to do with what is arguably one of our most serious challenges, and that is power. We have been working on the power sector for years, and we may still continue to work for several more years to come. But other nations are moving into renewable energy. So if we were to build skills and competencies in solar technology, for instance, and find a way of bringing the cost down, we can have solar and renewable energy employ almost as many people as are engaged in the telecoms value chain today, because everybody uses either a generator or something to power their houses. And if we have an option that can bring that cost down and also give people access to jobs, it is doable. What we should really focus on, I heard the DG again mention skill acquisition centers. Every single state in Nigeria has these centers. NDA has, SMEDAN has, and ITF has. I'm glad you asked the question about ITF. There seems to be an overlap between the activities of some of these government agencies in terms of skill acquisitions. And if we look at what we call skill acquisition, it's the most important bit of getting people to work, but it is also one of the most neglected. So if you have 72 skill acquisition centers and they are absolutely all not in a position to work, compare that with Brazil, with whom we share maybe similar demographics. It's a population of 200 million, and they have technical education centers in excess of 1,500 to train people on skills with short-term intensive programs that can get people into the job market, get them to have something that they could use to work. So almost any area of human endeavor that we can map, if we can give people skills to be productive, there is enough demand in the economy to get them to be economically active.
All right, Mr. Tokwe Toko, I will stay with you. There's a point that I would like us to thrash very quickly before we get the closing thoughts from the other guests with us here in the Abuja studios. And it is as follows. Yes, I mean, we understand some of the numbers. Some 37 million MSMEs we are told around the country, and they have the largest opportunity for absorbing the workforce. Now, but some persons believe that for you to actually catalyze the MSMEs as employers of labor, the MSMEs should, of necessity, act, in most cases, as subcontractors to the bigger players in the sector. I mean, whether in industrial or manufacturing. Do we have a sense now of our MSMEs being positioned, as it were, to act truly as subcontractors to the big industrial and manufacturing concerns? And if so, if not, what do we need to do?
I'll share an example from South Africa with you, and they've got legislation supporting supplier networks, vendor development, and distributor development. I think we already have that. I'd like us to be careful in making those positions, simply because all MSMEs cannot be subcontractors or vendors to the bigger players. There is enough room for different types of MSMEs to flourish in the economy. But it's a very important point that you make. When we give contracts out, do we require people? Do we require those major firms to patronize local subcontractors? Do we require evidence of what they are doing to develop their supplier network? I can mention a number of companies in Nigeria who are active in that area, mostly in the FMCG element. You have all the people all the people producing foods and other stuff now going to train the people who distribute for them. That's important. We also need to take a look at what the oil and gas sector, almost every sector, we can use that sort of process to stimulate the economy. But we are going to have to drive it with the power of the budget that we hand out to those who we award major contracts to, by requiring them, by taking a look at what they are doing in terms of developing their own value chain. Some legislation can help with that, but other than that, I'll simply say it's not simply one side. We must have policies that are comprehensive, that would help us to grow the entire MSME sector.
All right, Facilitator Human Policy Development Commission, Nigerian Economic Summit Group. Thank you very much. You joined us actually in 2 areas, on the Third Mainland Bridge as well as in our studio in Lagos. It was a great delight talking to you, Mr. Tokpe Togun. We wish you well. Okay, more reactions from our viewers. We'll quickly run through them and we'll call it a wrap on this discussion. Clifford Agogwese, create awareness on these multiple programs. We get to learn of these programs only when the program runners are on NTA.
Now, change to progress. Government needs to focus on the SMEs and provide support and encourage the youth to appreciate that hard work pays instead of fast criminal options.
From Angela Isham, this government keeps saying no jobs, yet people are employed daily. It's who you know, period. Or how much a person is willing to pay to get a job.
And we have this from Imran Taiwo. Now, if we say Nigerian graduates are not having the required skills, where are they made? Is it not in Nigerian institutions? Who is to blame?
Prince Kajetan, an average Nigerian is very industrious, hence loan facilities should be encouraged on low interest rates.
Well, Jacob Chile says, I expect us to also focus on the quality of the schools that produce these graduates, not just on unemployability.
From Kenny Wole Osineye, fix power and road in this nation and watch how rapid our economy will pick up. There can be job creation in the absence of these and more.
Nonye Umahi, or Umahi, sorry if I got the inflection wrong. Now, the only way to stop unemployment is to inculcate entrepreneurship with practicals from primary to tertiary education levels.
And from Abdugani Taufik, the federal and state governments should collaborate and employ at least 20 graduates each into all secondary schools in Nigeria.
Akinyele Tolu Twist, we can't create jobs until we address the issue of qualitative education.
From Gist Masters, who is to blame for graduates not having the required employability skills? Not the students, but the government.
Okay, now those are the twists that we can take in the meantime. And of course, we'd like to go over now to the DG of National Directorate of Employment. Let's get your closing thoughts very briefly on this question of creating jobs and then getting the right kick with regard to unemployability.
Thank you. As I said earlier, in addition to our various skill centers, about 74 in number, we have about 32 units of school on wheels, that is mobile training workshops. And to be frank with you, none of them is working. So just 2 weeks ago, I had a discussion with the German ambassador, because they are all made from Germany, so that we can see how they can come in and assist us on that. And luckily for us, he sent a team and they came to our head office. They look at one of them, and I think they are serious in terms of putting them back to life. And once we have that done, it is much, much easier for us to move into each and every nook and corner of this country, more especially the rural areas. so that we can train young men and women around there on various skills.
All right, Malam Mohammed Ladan, Director General of the National Directorate of Employment, would like to thank you for being part of our program this morning.
Thank you very much.
And then also Mr. Falabi Mokwede, Senior Special Assistant to the President of Job Creation and Youth Employment. One point from the tweets. Why do we, as the tweet has said or wrote, why do they appear to hear more about these programs more on television than elsewhere? We know that you've been on this program sometime in the past. What are states and local governments also doing to help broadcast or rebroadcast the programs that you have?
Okay, well, I mean, I think it's a good point, and it's also a timely. So we have been on TV, I've been on radio. I'm actually off to the radio now, and even at our states, a lot of our focal persons are also on the radio, at least to ensure that this next round, which a lot of people have been anxious about, there's the publicity. It starts, the portal would open tomorrow, and it will run for a bit, probably about a month before it closes. But I think at the end of the day, just to wrap up, like I said earlier, the role of government really in job creation is that of a facilitator. And then even as a facilitator, it's a multi-stakeholder approach. I mean, you multi-agencies, multi-stakeholder, the private sector. One of the things the president said very clearly is that the job creation effort of this government will be private sector driven. And in that regard, I'm glad Tokwe came on board, because we actually have a working committee and a working relationship with NESG when we came and we addressed our job creation strategy to be sector focused. We picked priority sectors: agri, construction, ICT, retail, and renewable energy. So the NESG is our custodian. So NECA and everyone, CIPM, all of them, they are all there. And I must also then mention that yes, all the comments are very valid. Like I started to say earlier, education is key. Our counterparts in the Ministry of Education, we have these conversations all the time. The industry are also key. They're part of the linkages, and that's why for the Empower, it's not just for the graduates. We have the vocational bit as well for construction,
so
for automobile,
collaboration will be needed
automobile, and even for technology. And we're working very strongly with the industry, with the partners in the industry, to ensure that they don't just get this training in center, but they also get the practical apprenticeship.
All right. Afolabi Mokwede, Senior Special Assistant to the President on Job Creation and Youth Employment. Thank you very much for your insights on the program today. We'll take a break at this point. When we return, we'll take a look at the aftermath of the Super Eagles in South Africa's job at the weekend. What went wrong? After this break.
Admission forms for the 2017-2018 academic session of NTA Television College JAWS into its diploma programs are now on sale. The diploma programs are in film and TV production, broadcast journalism, and TV engineering technology. Applicants are required to have at least 5 credits, including English language and mathematics at SSC, NECO, or GCO levels in not more than 1 sitting. Application forms can be obtained from the TV College Refi JAWS or at any NTA zonal centers nationwide on payment of a non-refundable fee of 7,500 naira in bank draft in favor of NTA Television College. Completed application forms should be returned to the office of the academic secretary, NTA Television College, or the Center of Purchase on or before 28th of July 2017. For further inquiries, please call 0806 980 9807 or 0703 660 7155. NTA Television College, training you to be the best you can be.
You're welcome back. Now, last Saturday, the history of competitive football between Nigeria's Super Eagles and South Africa was rewritten. What went wrong? Nigerians, of course, are still astounded by the outcome of that match. South Africa beat the Super Eagles at the Uyo Stadium by 2-0. We've been joined now by soccer analyst, Mr. Jacob Oyekale. Mr. Oyekale, a pleasure to have you join us on the program.
It's my pleasure.
Okay, now, let's, with the outcome is known, it's one of the qualification matches for the Cup of Nations. We've not been in that tournament for a while. Usually what happens is after some time when we are struggling to qualify, Nigerians will be getting into very elaborate calculations. Okay, if the other opponent loses, then we win. If we draw, the other one will draw. Why don't you go out there, score your goals, get your 3 points, secure a draw, and win on your own strength rather than making calculations? Are we back again to those days, and particularly the humiliation that the Eagles suffered in the hands of South Africa last Saturday?
On our own soil.
On our own, big time.
I think it still remains a shock to all soccer followers all around the world, and even the bookmakers, their books were torn to shreds. It's not unexpected because South Africa had their plans right. The coach have been boasting. They have psyched up their players, while on the other hand, in Nigeria, we look too relaxed and thinking it's South Africa, we can beat them. I remember way back in 1991, after the post-apartheid period of South Africa that we first met them, and they came to Lagos, they were totally annihilated, 4-0. All thanks to the likes of Richard Owobokere, Rashidi Yekini, and Samson Siasia that did the demolition work. And since after that, anytime South Africa comes, it is easy to predict that Nigeria is going to win. And at worst, we'll pick a draw. But it's quite unfortunate that I think it's just there are a couple of things that resulted into the result.
What are those things? For some saying goalkeeping and the defensive area, where do we need to put more work?
I think before you begin to pick blames on individual players, you have to look at it. It's a team, and you have a technical crew, and you must give credit to the technical crew led by Granat Raw. He's been able to assemble a group of young, talented legs, but you see, there is no substitute for experience and maturity. If you look at the team well, there is no leader in the team. No leader. So they wondered. They could not really conduct themselves. There are times when you see, even if a Nigerian team is down by 4-0, a typical Nigerian would believe that this team can rally itself back and win the game. But on Saturday, the team played without direction. And now, what is the problem? You begin to realize that in the central defense, the moment Leon Balogun is not there to partner with Truss Ekong, the central defense looks shaky. It happened even against Zambia the last time out. It happened again the match we played against Algeria. But Balogun was there against Algeria. You see that stability. But against South Africa, both, especially the left wing back, you begin to suspect Echejile with his experience, his sense of positioning was suspect. Again, the screen to the central defense led by Ogenye Onazi, the aggression is not there. And looking at the second goal, it's so shambolic. It's a schoolboy error. How would 10 men leave the defense all in the name of trying to look for goals? You are not, and the goalkeeper, I expect him to be proactive.
Where does this leave Nigeria in a group which is also having defending champions Cameroon in all of this?
I think, thank God it's coming early. It's our first match. So talking about permutation or calculation, it does not arise now.
Oh, okay. It will arise later.
It will arise later. We have 5 more matches to play. And if we can get our acts together, out of the 5 matches, we can win 4 and maybe draw the last one. I think we can still come home dry and we are okay to qualify.
I'm just wondering, if we can win, the way you just said, did we have a team on Saturday? That's one question. The other question is, where did the complacency arise from? Was it a friendly we were going to play? We had been playing friendly matches with Corsica. We struggled 1-1. I don't know, they beat Togo, and the headlines were all elaborate. So you come now into the competitive arena and you have no midfield. You are looking for the team. You can't find character. Is it the same team, or you have some technical changes that will win the remaining 4 matches according to the permutations that will come later?
Yeah, I think just as I said earlier, the team lacks leader. If you had, for example, had a Mikel Obi in the midfield, and you have a Leon Balogun in the defense, and a person like Victor Moses in the front, these are leaders. They can carry the team. Nigeria, we've not really find ourselves in this kind of position because over time, before another generation of team comes in, there is this substitution, elimination by substitution that do come in. In those days, when Chukwu was leaving, you have a Keshi. When Stephen Keshi was leaving, you have an Okechukwu. When Okechukwu was leaving, you have a Taribo West. Taribo West, you have Joseph Yobo, and stuff like that. The same thing in the midfield. When Muda Lawa was leaving, you have another person to tell. You have an Henry Nwosu and Friday Ekpo, then you have an Okocha. Okocha left, you have a John Mikel Obi. So you need to really breed this young lad. They need to synergize with the team. Another problem is that we have no central striker, no out-and-out striker.
So a total overhauling of this team is what we need now. A total overhauling, really.
Not overhauling, get me. This technical crew have done a good job. All they just need is injection of few experienced players. And again, the coach should get his tactics right. Especially against a team you are playing, you need to study them very well.
JJ,
but that's why they are paid, by the way. I mean,
exactly.
Yes.
Because we need a top striker. Olaniwaju Kayode is the top striker in Austria. Same thing with Henry Oyekuru.
We will send yourself and Kingsley to actually do more on the job, so we don't have this kind of abysmal outing next time. Thank you very much, Jacob Oyenkale, joining us to take a look at the outcome of the AFCON qualification with South Africa and Nigeria over the weekend. Well, quickly now, the weather prospect for the rest of today.